Today on the BCP Show, we talk with Barbara Higgens and Harold Harrington. The city of Flint, Michigan has been on the news for its water crisis and political scandal, but these two heroes are changing that story by doing good with what they have. All that and much more coming up. You're listening to the Blue Collar Proud Show, and you, my friends, are Proud Nation.
It's the Blue Collar Proud Show, the show for business owners who are building businesses they can be proud of. Because having a strong business means a better life for you and your community. That's what it means to be Blue Collar Proud. And now, here's your hosts, Carter Harkins and Taylor Hill.
Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show, BCP.
That's it.
Blue Collar Proud, it's the show all about having and living the blue collar business dream. Man, business is where it's at. To me, that's where you meet your match, and your match is you. It's looking in the mirror and figuring out how you can make your business better by becoming better. And that's the name of the game, building the business of your dreams, taking your blood, sweat, and tears and putting it into the business that's going to get you more of what you want. Every single day.
Every day.
We want to help you get there with the education, encouragement, and mentoring that you need to grow every step of the way on your business journey. My name is Carter Harkins. With me every week is Taylor Hill.
And I'm still here every week by your side.
Running this thing, making it work.
Making it work, yeah. But I'm with you. I think, business is where it's at. I mean, when you have a business, it's like having a family, and it's great. It's awesome.
Yeah. Every challenge... it mirrors life.
It does.
Every life challenge you can find in your business. Mm-hmm. I've always said that the two things that have caused me to grow more as a human being are leading a business and having a child. Yeah. Not necessarily in that order, no. but those two things have caused me to grow as a human being more.
I was going to say,
than anything else.
The thing, and this is where people miss it. A lot of people think that life is wonderful if you never get challenged. But they miss it because life is glorious when you get challenged.
It's the challenge.
It's the challenge.
The growth.
Yes.
Yeah. Why would you not want to stop growing? Why would you say, this is enough? I'm not talking about money and the spoils of the business.
Right.
Those are results of growth. Yeah. But when your business is growing and thriving, it means you're growing and thriving as its leader, as the business owner. Why would you ever want to stop that journey? Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense to me either, man. But there are people out there do.
But it's a journey, right? You're headed to where you're going, and along that road, you see all these cars that are pulled over on the side of the road with business owners that have just decided this is as far as I want to go.
Well, but I think sometimes, Carter, that they're not prepared for the journey. And so if you don't prepare for a journey, then it could get old, it could get tedious. There's a lot of things that can happen. There's a lot of things we could talk about here. We probably don't want to get into that right now, but I'm just saying there's a lot to that can happen. So, we know way too many people that are on journeys they hate.
Sure.
They're because they didn't create a journey with intent. And I'm really big about that now because what I've realized is I don't care what you dream. I don't care what it is. If you don't dream with intention and then take action on that intention, you ain't got nothing but a dream.
That's true. Those that are successful and those that are not yet successful, I'm not going to say that they're failures because anybody who feels like they're doing something wrong has the ability to change what they're doing in order to start doing it in a new way that brings different results. Success.
Yep.
Okay, let's call it. But intent is the difference oftentimes between those two journeys because the guy who's doing it and hates it is doing the same work as the guy who's doing it and loves it.
Yep.
It's the difference between the two is the intent that they bring to the game, to the business, right? And that makes all the difference.
Yes.
It really does. And we're going to be talking with two people today, Barbara Higgens and Harold Harrington, two people who are in the midst of this Flint, Michigan debacle, if you will. If you look at it from the political standpoint, if you look at it from the human standpoint, it's a crisis.
It's a crisis.
And they're taking what they've learned as human beings and the success that they've had in various areas, and they're bringing that to bear on a problem that is, and it's a tremendous story. So I'm excited about what we're going to be talking about
So
today.
if you think you got challenges, wait till you hear this story.
Yeah. But
these
taking
people
what
got
you've got and the
challenges.
skills you've got and taking the intent,
Yes.
right? Changing your intent to bring change to the world.
You bet.
And the world that you're in. And for these two, that world includes Flint, Michigan. So it's going to be a good conversation. You know, I don't have a whole lot of topic or announcements to make. We're not actually speaking anywhere that's on the schedule at the moment until much further, and we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get down to that. But for now, all the speaking's kind of done, and we're bringing it in a little bit, working on our business. We're excited about
it.
Bringing some new things to bear, both for Spark Marketer as well as Blue Collar Proud.
Blue Collar Proud. Yeah, we've got some big things. You guys just need to stay tuned.
Yeah.
I think probably in the next 6 months or so, we're gonna be able to blow some socks off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, get some good stuff coming.
If you have a review that you'd like to leave for us, we would love you to leave us a review in the iTunes app. It's real easy to do. You've already got it. If you've got an iPhone, then just click on the purple Podcasts app. You've already got it. It's just part of the iOS for that phone. Open it up, do a search for Blue Collar Proud, look below the most recent episodes and click on the bigger icon for the Blue Collar Proud Show, and that'll take you to the full page. And there's a tab at the top. It's the middle one that says reviews. Click there and you're in the right place to leave us a review. We read all the reviews we get. So when you leave one there, we're going to read it online. Just know that. Or read it on the show. Just know that. And share with us what you think. Good or bad, indifferent, whatever. We want to know what you think of the show. I want to encourage you to do that. I want to tell you about our book, as always, Blue Collar Proud, the 10 Principles for Building a Kick-Ass Business You Love. That's available on Amazon.com. You can just go to Amazon, Google, search. It's like that word is now synonymous with search.
Just search Google.
Go to Amazon and Google it. That's not what I mean. Go to Amazon and search Blue Collar Proud. You'll find both the paperback version and the Kindle version, and shortly you'll be able to find the audiobook version as well.
Yep.
So working on that, and we'll be announcing that shortly when it's available. So order a copy, read it, listen to it when it's available on audio, but leave us a review and tell us what you think of the book. These 10 principles are changing people's lives. Really, I mean, they're telling us these things, these principles, the way you guys are talking about it, are causing us and challenging us to go back to the drawing board and start doing things differently.
Yep. It's good stuff.
Creating the business that we can be proud of, that gives us everything we want, that we love.
Yeah, and I'll just say, for everybody that's come up and told us, you know, that it's really changing things, we really appreciate it very, very much. You know, you write something like this and you just kind of hold your breath, and because you base it on observations and conversations and experiences. I mean, our own experiences here. And
we've seen these principles work.
Yeah,
absolutely,
in our own business. So it's not something that we haven't done.
Yeah.
But we've also talked to other people who have made some changes and who have done very similar things, and so we just felt like this is really the way to start building businesses to love.
Yeah.
It gives you the freedom and time that you want. You know.
So once you read the book, in the very back, you'll be able to take the Blue Collar Proud Pledge. You can take it online. Just go to the link that's there in the book. You'll be able to take the Blue Collar Proud Pledge. I'm basically saying I'm pledging to grow my business the Blue Collar Proud way. And there's 10 things around each one of the 10 principles of the book that you're saying, I will grow my business this way. You can sign it online, and then there's some benefits to doing that. So we want to encourage you to do that.
I bet.
Become a part of the Blue Collar Proud Nation, those that are saying, I'm growing my business the Blue Collar Proud way.
And the only other thing I would ask is to go to Amazon and give us a review on Amazon. We don't want fake reviews. We want the real thing, the real McCoys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for those reviews. We'll be reading more of those here on the show in the coming months and the coming episodes. And that's it. That's all I got. Let's go to the front lines.
All right, let's go.
We take you now to the front lines in the ongoing battles of blue-collar business. Reporting from the trenches are the blue-collar proud advisors, coaches, and mentors leading the charge. Today's report comes from Hope Stevenson with Signature Training. It's good to have you with us here in the studio, Hope. What are you seeing out there?
Meetings.
Yeah?
That's just
Death
one word.
by
I'm
meeting.
just going to drop the mic.
Lots of
Death by
meetings.
meetings.
Yeah,
Patrick
death by
Lencioni,
meetings.
Yeah. So I think we've all maybe in our previous lives worked at a company where it was just meeting after meeting after meeting. And yet at the same time, meetings can make or break our company because they're the biggest platform for communication and clear, decent communication. So what kind of meetings are needed and what are too much and what are too little? So I kind of have a format. I like a weekly staff meeting just to get everyone on the same page. Being in the service business, we all have service technicians, no matter what service you provide. We like morning meetings with those guys or girls, 5 minutes, stand-up huddle meetings. Those are great. It's just review what you did the day before. Here's what we're doing today. And then I think the biggest thing where we fail, actually, we do most people I see do a good job with their employees and getting them on board. What we don't do is enough management and more strategy meetings. So department meetings, if you've got a bigger company, you have multiple departments, those should meet weekly. And those are really the ones where I talk about having a scorecard, where each person knows what their benchmarks are and they know to bring that to the meeting. So each department is going to have a different scorecard. But every week we're checking those same metrics. You have to identify what's important for each department. We check those same metrics. And then on a bigger scale, the monthly management meetings where you take all the leaders, so those department heads that have been meeting weekly, now you sit with the owners and you go everything from personnel problems to financials to marketing strategies. Those all happen monthly. Those are the monthly manager meetings. Mm-hmm. And then the last one that I love that I've seen very few people do is we call it a State of the Union meeting. And we do it once a year. And it's just really kind of towards the end of the year. And it's just really just a celebration. We make it a big party. And it's a celebration of what we did the past year. And then this is the chance for the owner to kind of lay out his vision and goals for the next year. Not in depth, but just an overall view. We love these. We invite the families, and it's just really a really cool celebration at the end of the year of how awesome this year has been.
Well, that's awesome. I tell you, I've worked for companies. I felt like I walked in one meeting door and right out and into another one. So, you just can get too many meetings in a lot of ways. This last year, we took a lot of time and developed our leadership team and is going to pretty much the model that you had. And we used to have a weekly staff meeting, but we've realized that that's almost too much because we have departmental meetings and we're still relatively small too. So, but it's really interesting. That's pretty much where we're going. We haven't done our State of the Union, but we're planning to do one at the end of this year.
Yeah. It's just a time for celebration.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the weekly staff meetings. So the key to because the amount of meetings you need to have are really dictated. They can get too much if you don't have the right content in them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the weekly staff meetings are, for us, they're anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. And it's policies, celebration, and safety. I mean, it's not, because we get into the details in the department meetings.
Right.
So it sounds like a lot of meetings, but not every person on board will be at every meeting. So some of ours are only at the weekly staff meeting. And then some of the head of the departments, of course, would be at multiple meetings. But that's where I think having the appropriate people in the meeting and having the appropriate use of the meeting, the agenda, makes a world of difference.
Yeah, because we were getting I think it's really good to point out if your staff meetings are too granular, then it's probably not the place. And that's what we did. We broke those up and had departmental meetings. And we realized that we were just, they were going an hour long and we were just covering the same things over and over again. Yep. So, so I think you have to just be real cognizant about what everybody's talking about.
Right. And not everyone needs to hear everything. When you get that granular, not everyone needs to hear everything. So, our staff meetings are policy announcements, celebrations, because we like to praise in public. Everybody gets to hear it. Safety, and just kind of the calendar. It's very, very simple and very, very quick.
That's good.
Awesome.
That's good. If you're listening and you think, yep, I need to know more about meetings and how to get those done, you can contact Hope and just chat with her. Her email address is hope@dpstconsulting.com. Thanks, Hope.
Thank you.
It's the Check-In with Reality segment, and Taylor Hill is bringing the good stuff.
Man, I was ready for you got questions, we've got answers.
No,
you
but,
threw it up, man.
Well, we don't always answer questions. A lot of times we're just
don't.
talking about things that are, one of those 10 principles or focused around one of those 10 principles. And I always hate to say you've got questions, we got answers when there's not necessarily a question that's forthcoming. We're always willing to answer questions.
We are.
And there's a place on our website, bcpshow.com, that you can go. I think it's bcpshow.com/reality. In fact, I know it is. That will take you to the form where you can actually ask us a question. We have answered those before. So if you have a question you'd like us to answer during this segment of the show, you can do that there. This time, though, we're talking about something that is near and dear to us. We think it is, in fact, the number one factor for growing a business that you can love. It is the number one principle we talk about in our book, Blue Collar Proud, available on Amazon. But this is leadership.
Leadership.
In fact, I mean, there's a lot of effort, a lot of attention that's been brought to the skills gap in our country. And it is tough to find skilled people.
Yeah, it is
business.
a gap. It is a gap.
But we think there's a bigger issue.
Yeah.
And it's the leadership gap.
Yep.
Because we think that if you become a better leader, you will attract better people, and the skills gap will cease to be the issue that it is for your business. Because all over this country, there are people who are growing multi-million-dollar businesses who are hiring as fast as they need people, and they're not having a problem finding those good people. That tells me that while there is a skills gap for some people are choosing not to participate in that skills gap.
That's right.
And that skills gap is not impacting their business at all. The difference between a business who is a part of the skills gap and a business who isn't is one thing. And that's the number one thing we talk about in our book, which is leadership.
Leadership. I think this upsets people when you tell them that they're the problem. Because as the business owner, you're the problem for everything.
Here we go
it's
again.
everything. And
I'm
so
the
you
problem.
do. I'm the problem. I'm the problem. This is not working. I'm the problem. That's not working. I'm the problem. It's tough to think of yourself as always the problem. And that's really negative. That's a kind of a negative way to look at it. So the better way to look at it is you're also the solution. So you're the solution.
When the problem is you, that means that you have the ability to change it.
You can change it. You are the solution. And the greatest thing is that leaders are not born. This is the biggest fallacy. Leaders are born. Leaders are born. I'm just not a born leader. Leaders aren't born. Leaders are made. And they're mainly made by people who say, I'm going to figure out how to be a really kick-ass leader. And then I'm going to go figure it out, and I'm going to be that. That to me is number one. So we get to solve the leadership problem by being really better leaders. So how do you become a better leader? What are the things that you have to do to become a better leader? One of the things is what we talked about last week, emotional intelligence, self-awareness. That's a biggie. You got to be self-aware. You have to be aware of yourself before you can be aware of others, period. Having that emotional intelligence, not only is it going to help you with your business, it's going to help you with your marriage, it's going to help you with your relationship with your kids, it's going to help you all the way around, all right? Don't care, hands down, it just will. Anytime you become a better person, it helps you with everything. So that's number one, okay, in my book. Because you can't lead anybody if you can't lead yourself. So if you can't change yourself, why do you think you can change anybody else? I'm going to ask that question again. As a person, if you cannot make changes within yourself, Why do you think you can make them in other people? And yet that's what most of us do first. You know, Carter, I don't like what you did, so you need to change. You know, it's not, Carter, I don't like what you did because I was looking at it this way. And you know what? I think maybe the way I was looking at it was, that's critical. I need to change the way I'm looking at that. It's two totally different things. And you get two totally different results. Because for me saying, Carter, I don't like that, so you need to change, all of a sudden, now Carter says, well, wait a minute. Why do I need to change? I don't see you changing, leader. There's no incentive. So if the people around you see you working on a skill, a self-skill, see you and tell them, hey, I have not done this well, and I am working on this, and I'm going to change this. Once you tell them that, they're going to be watching you.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah. But when you start changing that, respect, admiration, all of a sudden,
it's transparency.
Being transparent and letting them know what you're doing. And when they see that happen in front of them, all of a sudden, man, everything raises. You know, everything raises. And then you go to the next thing, and everything raises from there. And the next thing, everything raises from there. And how do you do that? Books. Like I said, I've said this before, counseling. If you need it, go. Not everybody needs it, but I'm going to say if you do, go. Audiobooks, podcasts like this one. There's other ones out there. You know, anything, information, talking to mentors. You know, the most successful people I know have coaches. Everywhere. They have a personal coach. They have a business coach. They have I know people that have got athletic coaches. You know, in whatever area that they're trying to really do, they've got coaches. Now, not everybody can hire that.
Well, it's expensive.
It can be expensive. But before that, there's a lot of other free things you can have. You know, there's stuff. There's meditation apps that are free. There's exercise apps that are free. You know, walking.
It's
apps,
looking for
apps.
looking for the help that you can afford.
Looking for the help that you can afford. Yeah.
Not looking for help is so much more expensive than the help that you can pay for to help change the problem.
Absolutely.
Not changing is so expensive. And how many businesses have we seen and talked with business owners when we are interacting with them who say, well, you know, this is the problem, and they're pointing at something else, right, that's outside of their control. Well, there's a skills gap. You know, I can't find good people. There's nobody out there that's good. And, you know, I can't find the people that I need to help me grow my business. And so that's the reason that I'm not growing. And it's a cop-out.
It is a cop-out. Let me just tell you an article I shared with our staff today. You'll get a kick out of this one because I don't think you've seen it. But I put in the general channel, we have a Slack channel here. I just put this article and I asked the question, is this true? And it says one of the biggest problems is millennials don't know how to talk on the phone.
No, I read it.
Did you read it?
Yeah, I saw everybody's comments.
Yeah, and it's like,
how telling.
How telling was that? I mean, there are a lot of people here that aren't millennials. None of us like talking on the phone.
None of us
like talking on the phone. But this article is blaming this on millennials. I'm like, oh, it's enough of blame. Quit the blame game. You know? Nobody wants to talk on a phone. I don't want to talk on the phone, yet I'm on the phone all day long. Why? Because I have to. It's my job.
Right.
You know, I have account managers. They're on the phone all day long. Why? Because it's their job. They do their jobs well. They're trained well. But left to their own device, would they want to just pick up a phone? Nobody wants to do that. I mean, come on. So those are the kinds of things that drive me crazy.
Well, so good leadership it changes the conversation. It begins with, okay, so I'm having trouble hiring people. Why is that? And what can I do about that, right? Mm-hmm. It's not, well, I'm just going to live with the fact that nobody wants to cooperate and come help me grow my business, so I guess I'm not going to grow. It's putting all of the control in somebody else's hands.
Boy.
And that's not leadership. Good leadership says, I've got a problem with finding the right people. I got to find out what I can do to become the kind of business that the right people want to come work for.
Yes.
What can I do to grow as a business owner? What can I do to change my culture to be the kind of place that's magnetic, that attracts people by the droves, to where I've got stacks of resumes that I can't even interview everybody because I've not got any more openings for these good people.
And if I told everybody what my core values are, maybe I don't have any core values. Maybe I need to figure out what my core values are so that people know what I stand for.
Good leadership starts with, what can I do to change to become more of what I need for my business?
Yeah.
That's where it always starts, right?
And so good leadership, if you look at that article, one of the things it talks about is honesty, trust, transparency. In the very beginning, one of the very first things you have to establish is that transparency, honesty, and trust. How do you do that? You grow in front of people.
Yeah, transparently.
Yes, that's how you do that.
I did it just recently. I sometimes have trouble managing my time when I get into the task, down to the task level. And the tasks that sometimes are on my plate are the wrong tasks. And one of the challenges of a leader is knowing when to delegate tasks that shouldn't be yours to the people that it needs to be. Time management, task, productivity, those things. And so I bought a book called Getting Things Done. And I told our team, if you're interested in reading this with me, this is how I'm deciding to get better. Mm-hmm. We'll buy you a copy of the book. Read it with me. And it was a dense book. And we may actually have the author on the show at some point in the future. And that's fine. I mean, the fact that it's dense doesn't mean that it's not a good book. It just means that for some people it's a harder read than others. And we had that discussion. Mm-hmm. This is a challenging book for me to read and get through. Yeah. Guess what? I mean, I basically stepped up and said, this is my challenge as a leader, and to become a better leader, this is what I'm doing. And if you want to join me in that, that's great. We were going to do a book club around it. Some people have already finished the book, and I haven't finished the book yet. I'm probably not even halfway through it yet. We got into our travel season when we start going, and so we haven't been able to do the book club. That's my fault. Yeah. You know, it was a timing issue, and we've not made the time to get it done. What I'm saying is that there are those in our business, who have stepped up to read the book and get ahead. Right. And they see this as something that they can contribute to the success of our business by becoming better task managers and productivity experts in managing their own time. And they're doing a better job than I am. And I'm willing to say that because I'm a transparent leader.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. You don't always have to read a book. Sometimes it's just becoming self-aware of something and then making a change. And that's what I've had to work on, because I've been over the account management and basically over Spark Marketer in the day-to-day task stuff. Everybody comes to me, and now we've got this leadership team, and people were just hopping over the leadership team and coming to me, and I was just answering the questions. What that does is it cuts the knees off of your leadership team, because you want them to be the ones that actually, if they need, everybody needs to go through them. And so I had to, say, hey, nope, you're not coming to me. You got to go back here, and just start making that clear, so that I don't usurp the leadership team, because that's the last thing you want to do.
The job of the leader is to create more leaders.
Is to create more leaders. So in order for me to do that, they have to have the experience of being able to lead. And if I don't let them have that experience, then they'll never be able to truly lead. And so these are the things that I'm learning. And I'm not 100% either. I mean, I catch myself, but I'm just saying there are things that you have to learn in order to lead people. And you have to be open. And I think that's a big thing too. You have to be open when one of your people who are, I don't care if they've been there for 2 days, comes to you and says, I have an idea. Give me your idea. Tell me what it is. You can't shut people down. You start shutting people down, you're not going to have any new ideas. I mean, you want to be open to people. So these are all things you have to do as a leader, but it challenges you. And every challenge you get is an opportunity to grow. Period. And every opportunity you have to grow is your opportunity to be a better leader. And if you can take that challenge instead of, I'm not a born leader, I'm not built to lead, and stop being negative and understand you are the solution.
The other part is the leader who's always projecting that they know everything and because they feel like to admit that they don't know the answer or don't know how to lead well is an admission. It's going to sabotage or undercut their own ability to lead. And in fact, the exact opposite is true. Yeah. Being honest with those you lead and letting them know that, guys, I don't have my act together here and I've got to do a better job in leading you. Well, first of all, they already know that.
Yeah, you're not telling me anything.
No,
yeah,
there's nothing new there. But your willingness to admit that you don't know it and that you're working on it inspires trust that they can hang with you and even compensate for your weakness while you're getting your act together and improving.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it really is being transparent. I also think that part of the know-it-all leader is, and I don't know exactly if this is worded right, but it's almost an ego boost that if you know it all, then you're the biggest ego in the room. And I think, I look at people that I deem to be great leaders, and across the board, their egos aren't really there. And I know they have egos, if pushed a certain way, sure. But they're very much more about building the people in the room as opposed to everybody in the room building them up, because they're already built up. They're secure in their leadership abilities. And they're so secure that now they're putting themselves in a place to build others. And I think that is really the place of a great leader.
Yeah, that's good. Good conversation about the number one topic in our book. Mm-hmm. All right. Our two guests today are key players in the ongoing clean water crisis in the town of Flint, Michigan. They are the good guys. They play on the good guys team, and the role they play in this still unfolding story is one of aid and relief through a massive coordinated volunteer effort. It's the kind of story that reminds you that there are good people in the world, and despite the tragedies that may occur, good people will step up. Barbara Higgens is Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director of PMI, Plumbing Manufacturers International, located in the Chicagoland area. In that role since 1998, she has been overseeing legislative advocacy, legal actions, and the codes and standards activities of the technical staff, among other things. PMI's current focus includes water efficiency, ensuring safe, clean drinking water, for example, through the PMI-sponsored and newly introduced national law to reduce lead in plumbing products. Harold Harrington has been business manager of United Association of Plumbers, Pipe Fitters, and Service Tradesmen of Local Union 370 in Flint, Michigan since July of 2010. He's a master journeyman plumber, a Flint City resident, and a member of Local 370 for over 30 years. Barbara and Harold, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Harold,
Thank you.
I want to ask you real quick, Harold, tell us a little bit. It's not often that we have a chance to talk to somebody who not only has the technical knowledge of the situation, but is also a resident right there where some of these events have been occurring that we've watched play out on national news. Could you just give us some insight into what's really going on there?
Well, yeah, a brief history. In April of 2014, they went to the Flint River for our drinking water in Flint. Nobody ever voted to do that. There was an emergency manager in town at the time, and I don't know who exactly made the call to go to the Flint River, but, it wasn't a week afterwards we knew there was something wrong with the water. It was brown, it smelled, it tasted bad. We kept getting information from officials that it was safe to drink. But, we knew there was something wrong, and then GM, 5 months later, General Motors factory in town went black on Detroit water, but they kept telling the residents it was safe to drink, and it wasn't until October of 15 they finally admitted, after 18 months, they admitted there was a problem, that the water was too corrosive, they weren't treating it properly, and it damaged the infrastructure and released a lot of lead into the plumbing systems, and people were getting high lead counts. So October of 15, all these filters show up from the state of Michigan for the residents to put on their taps to be able to drink the water. A lot of residents can't install these filters. So I got a call from the United Way to ask if we could help. So we started getting volunteers together in October of 15. But as we were going out to put these on, we realized that the faucets wouldn't accept a lot of them. 20, 30% of the faucets in town are old, and they wouldn't accept these filters. So we kept a list of that during the 3 months we were putting filters on. And then in January, my international got with the Plumbing Manufacturers International to get some faucets donated because we couldn't, faucets are pretty expensive. And we were able to get the plumbing manufacturers to donate them. So we had a big rally in January. January 30th, I had over 500 plumbers, pipe fitters, sprinkler fitters coming to town from around the state of Michigan, and we installed over 140 faucets that one day. And then the next few months, we used apprentice classes during the week to go out and install these faucets, and also we've been putting filters on right along too. But it was a great help to get those faucets donated because they probably donated over, counting the faucet stops, supply tubes, different materials. They donated probably $300,000-$400,000 worth of material.
Wow.
Goodness, that's incredible. As you've watched this story unfold, I know that there have been some challenges. Most residents were told at one point that they'd be drinking bottled water until they were told that the water is safe, and then they would be told that the water was safe. And yet there were still studies being done showing higher than acceptable lead levels by even as much as 5 times the accepted amount. And some of those things that were happening. From your perspective in providing and going into homes and seeing the conditions there, how has that impacted the community of Flint?
Well, it's had a huge impact. Nobody trusts anybody in any type of government position right now because they were lied to for so long about the water being safe. It's going to take a while to get the trust back. Right now, they're telling you it's safe to drink, but you have to have a filter on it. So, that's kind of double talk right there. It's not safe to drink. There's still particulate lead in the system, and our system has been compromised so bad. There's other things in the water. There's a lot of different bacteria they're finding. That's another thing we noticed when we were out going door to door putting the faucets and filters on. A lot of people were complaining of rashes and asthma and hair loss and stuff they never had before. And I got with the manufacturers again because in May we donated 1,000 shower filters, and we went out and installed them. But I had to have the plumbing manufacturers supply the low flow shower heads, and they did. They stepped up again, and we got a lot of phone calls. People could really tell the difference in the shower water after we did that. So there's still issues with the water. I mean, it's not safe to drink still. They still don't have bathing standards in this country for bathing water. Mm-hmm. They go in and they take a sample of cold water and tell you, it's safe to drink, but they don't test what's collected in your water heater, what you're bathing in. There's no standards for that. So there's issues besides lead in the water in Flint.
Talk about where did it come from? Where did this lead? I mean, I know the switch to the Flint River, but what caused the lead to suddenly appear in the water?
Well, the water was so much more corrosive coming out of the river. It wasn't treated with the proper corrosion control. They weren't ready to treat river water. Plant operator told them they weren't ready, but somebody made them throw the switch anyway. And that water basically destroyed the infrastructure. It ate the protective coating off the inside. The biofilm builds up on the inside of the pipe over the years, and that would isolate the lead pipes from the water system. Now, that corrosive water that went through there for 18 months ate that away. It was like running, acid through this water line, and it cleaned it so well that it exposed the lead right into direct contact with the water, and it also ate the corrosion that was on the inside of the cast iron pipes and galvanized pipes. You have cast iron mains and galvanized service lines also, and those galvanized lines, the studies are showing that those collect the lead over the years, and those are even worse than the lead lines because there's a lot more particles that become dislodged off the galvanized. So they're replacing lead and galvanized pipes right now for service lines. But there's a lot of work to do, and that's what caused the problem.
So did the corrosion happen in the water plant itself, if I'm understanding you correctly?
No, the corrosion control was not added at the water plant. So they were testing the water at the water plant, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The water plant is concrete tanks, okay?
Right.
It doesn't go through the distribution system. It should have been a big red flag when General Motors said it was rust in their parts at the engine plant, and they couldn't even use the water. So all they said was, when that happened, okay, it's not good for manufacturing, but it's still okay to drink. They didn't know what kind of damage it was doing to the infrastructure, but it was the whole 18 months.
Wow. And it's my understanding that this is just the tip of the iceberg, that Flint, if this happens, it could happen in any town across the nation, from some of the things I've read.
And that's correct. I mean, Flint, the older cities in the United States, Flint, Pittsburgh, Detroit, the older cities all have lead service lines. And if you have the water not treated properly, it can happen. It can happen anywhere in this country until you get rid of the lead lines and the galvanized lines.
Well, Barbara, we've just gotten a really good explanation of what's going on in Flint, but like Taylor said and like Harold said, this is something that could be a much bigger issue. How big of an issue is this for clean drinking water across the United States?
Well, and thanks for highlighting this issue during this broadcast. I think as Americans, we have for a long time taken for granted the notion of clean drinking water, and our manufacturing members have done great things in the name of water purity and water efficiency, but it's sort of the case of the 900-pound gorilla. What's been overlooked over time, and Harold has mentioned it several times, is the notion of infrastructure. And we've heard quite a bit about roads and bridges in this country, but what is not spoken about often is the infrastructure that delivers our water. And that is really something that needs to be highlighted and paid attention to, again, both in the name of water purity and in the tremendous amount of leakage that occurs before the water ever gets to our plumbing devices, faucets, shower heads, toilets, etc. So I do think it is a huge task. The good news out of the tragedy of Flint is that the notion of clean water and the notion of the need to address infrastructure has been raised to tremendous levels. There's been quite a bit of press, both with Harold's efforts and the donations of product by our plumbing manufacturing members. But he's absolutely right. The task is just beginning, and it behooves each community to really pay attention to that infrastructure, which in many cases is just insufficient from a material standpoint.
Talk a little bit about the work that Plumbing Manufacturers International is doing. You represent, obviously, this is a membership of manufacturers, and tell me a little bit about what makes up the association membership exactly.
Sure. It's names that you'd be familiar with, the folks who are probably in your bathroom. American Standard Brands, Brasscraft, Delta Faucet, Fluid Master, Kohler Company, Moen, Speakman, Viega, Pfister. All of those members donated products to the cause, and we serve to have their voices heard as it relates to legislation and regulation. You mentioned in the introduction the fact that PMI was instrumental in shepherding a bill through Congress that is now signed into law to continually reduce the amount of allowable lead in plumbing products. And we do that not only with an eye toward products manufactured in this country, but also imported products, and want to make sure that there's a level playing field that delivers quality products to consumers. So we're an advocate on behalf of those manufacturing members, but also sort of the voice of reason when it comes to political decisions. As Harold mentioned, there was a decision to change the source of the water, and there was no checks and balances to make sure that that was a smart decision, a right decision. And PMI is the voice of the unintended consequence. Often when a decision is made, it's done so in a vacuum without consideration to the consequences of those decisions. And so we, as a a trusted resource, want to be brought to the table to have a discussion before decisions are made that don't take into context some of the other ramifications of those decisions.
And I may be asking a loaded question here, but I know with what's just happened with the EPA, as well as there's this big infrastructure bill sitting in Congress. So can you speak a little bit to how that would affect water?
Absolutely. Our notion is that infrastructure really does need to be addressed. In places like California, where the drought is alleviated to some degree by a couple of rainstorms, but the reality is that cycle of drought will continue for probably another decade or so. Now, we really do need to take into consideration the infrastructure. Plumbing manufacturers have made great strides in innovation to deliver products that are effective, but we want people to think in terms of the entire plumbing system. So again, at the risk of repeating myself, the good news of Flint is that people now understand that water doesn't magically appear at the faucet, but that it's traveled quite a long way through an underground system to get to where it is. PMI and its members do have a great partnership with EPA on the efficiency side, and we would absolutely advocate and support that they continue to promote the need to upgrade and restore our aging infrastructure.
And of course, that's going to require feet on the ground right there in those local areas where those infrastructure issues are occurring, to think systematically about them, and then to, as that trickles out into the actual work orders that need to be put together to do the work. So Harold, back to you. Tell us a little bit about Local 370, your membership, and because these are volunteers, right, that have gone in and done what they've been doing in Flint, Michigan. These are people who are, giving up a Saturday or even during the week, right?
Yeah, it was all volunteer work for what we were doing. We've got over 12,000 man-hours that we volunteered so far, and that was a couple months back. I mean, we're still doing some volunteer work. Right now, there's not a lot of volunteer work going on because most of the faucets and filters have been replaced. There is still a core team in town now that is Flint residents that's being paid by the city, that's using state money to go around and make sure these filters are now on properly and the cartridges are changed. So it's being taken over by somebody else. But a year ago, it wasn't being addressed when we were going around doing that. Now, the infrastructure in Flint is like a lot of these old towns. It used to be a lot bigger. It's not just these lead lines. The infrastructure is way oversized. We've lost 20 GM plants, Fisher Body, AC, and half our residents. We went from 200,000 people to just under 100,000. So our system is way oversized, and that needs to be addressed in a lot of communities because some of this water is sitting in these lines for a month after it comes out of the water plant, and that loses the chlorine, which causes the bacteria. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to our infrastructure in this country. But right now, we still have contractors that are now working on replacing the lead lines. There's 6,000 of them going to be done this year. Our contractors that are signatory with us, I believe, have 4,800 of the 6,000. And we're going to make sure it's done the right way with licensed, qualified plumbers and try to get it fixed.
Talk a little bit about just the human side of it. These are an entire community that's been really hit and affected by this, the quality of life, the ability to feel confident that the water that I'm drinking and the water that I'm exposing my family to is, potentially harming them. I mean, kids with potential exposure levels to lead, that they could face lifelong learning issues and quality of life. And the membership of Local 370 said, this is unacceptable, we're stepping up. And talk about are there any stories you can tell us about some of the members and the way that this organized from a grassroots level?
Well, it got organized when we first, got involved with the filters and found out there wasn't even water. There wasn't even bottled water. So our members voted, to spend $20,000 on bottled water. And Kroger, which we do a lot of work with, Kroger grocery chain in town, we called them and they actually matched it. So we had 16 semi-loads full, $40,000 worth of bottled water come into town before we even were able to start on the filter and the faucet replacement. So, we thought a lot of people were buying donated water and shipping it to Flint, but, we're plumbers. We knew we could do a lot more than just give them bottled water. It's a temporary fix. Everybody's still drinking bottled water. A lot of people don't even trust the filters, but, we knew we could at least get filters installed for the elderly people that can't get out of their house and get to these pods to pick up the water, because a lot of people are old retired GM workers in town. Their family, their kids left because there was no work in Flint, so they're on their own. So we wanted to try to make sure we could at least get a filter that they could use if they needed water. And we've had a lot of our own members affected. I live in Flint, and I was doing all this volunteer work, and I never got around to testing my water because I seen, okay, I got a copper water line coming through my wall in my basement. I got to be good. So it was last February I tested mine, and I was 151 parts per billion, which is 10 times over the action level in my house. And I did a little more investigation because my upstairs is fed with galvanized pipes. My downstairs is fed with copper. The old galvanized lines have been there, 80 years, and I never changed them going upstairs because they were in the walls. So I tested both. Upstairs was 151 off the galvanized, and downstairs was 34 parts per billion. So even downstairs, I still was over 2 times higher than the action level. But that told me the galvanized was a big issue, and we've done a lot more testing, and there was a report that just come out last month from Professor Mark Edwards that did say, the galvanized is as big an issue as the lead. So that's a huge issue because most of the houses in Flint were built before 1960, and a lot of them still have galvanized lines inside the house that isn't being talked about. But I've seen a lot of people that have been sick. My wife, we've had a lot of people in Flint die of Legionnaire's disease once they went to the river. There's over 12 right now that they know of. And in April of 2015, my wife was in the hospital for 5 days with pneumonia symptoms. They never could figure it out, but now the doctor's telling her she had Legionnaire's. So, that's an issue. It's an issue when people are dying from drinking the water, and this shouldn't happen in a third world country, much less the United States.
Mm-hmm. So my question to you, Barbara, is when you hear those stories and you're in the position that you are, how do you combine the human stories that you guys see on one side and the political realm on the other?
Well, I think, at the outset you made the comment, good people step up and do good things. And we were delighted to partner with the plumbers to do this humanitarian outreach to people that had taken for granted, and rightfully so, had taken for granted that they had pure, clean water. And there is responsibility that plumbing manufacturers take very seriously to protect the health and safety of consumers. In fact, that's part of our mission statement as an industry association. We embrace that and take it very seriously. Again, out of the tragedy and the increased awareness, I think people do realize the importance of plumbers and the plumbing industry that is often perhaps a little bit taken for granted. And I've said that sometimes we're a little bit like the Rodney Dangerfields of industry. But the reality is that we, as the plumbing industry, the plumbers together with the manufacturers, have saved more lives than doctors have, and doctors readily admit that, because there's nothing that is more crucial to human life and survival than clean water. So it is just imperative that we continue to be vigilant and watch out for unintended consequences. Harold mentioned the oversized plumbing system in areas like Flint and Detroit that then leads to standing water, which in turn breeds biofilm and bacteria like Legionella. And again, on the surface, someone that is looking to conserve water, just shifting away from cleanliness to conservation and efficiency for a moment, unwittingly will cut back a flow rate, which results in water standing, which enables these microorganisms to breed and grow. And that's where it's so important to pull the experts together into the room to counterbalance what may be a good intention of a regulator or legislator, but to counterbalance it with some good common sense and some technical expertise to avoid tragedies like Flint and to make sure that decisions moving forward are done not in a vacuum, but with all the experts at the table to avoid these unintended consequences that can be, as you've heard, life-threatening.
We had the mayor of our city on just recently who talked about the opportunities for plumbers and electricians and people in the trades to get involved in the city council. And so I just want to make a statement right here. This is a very good reason why, for all of our audience listening out there, it's important for you to step up and really take responsibility for your communities. I mean, I think that's a wonderful thing, and you guys have done a great job. So I'm going to turn it over to Carter. I know he has something.
Barbara and Harold, both, what was the relationship between PMI and Local 370? Was that something that was already established? Harold, did you know that you could reach out to people in Barbara's organization to say, hey, we have a need here for some donations from manufacturers to replace these faucets because until we get those done, we can't do the filters? What did that look like?
Well, that's when I contacted my international. I contacted Tom Bigley and Mark McManus and Bill Height, our president, secretary, treasurer, and our plumbing guy out of Pittsburgh, Tom Bigley, and they got, they started calling around and finding out because I've never had to ask for anything free before.
Sure.
I've always worked for companies where we bid the job and we purchased these products. I knew they were expensive, and I knew they were too expensive for my local. I'm a 500-man local, and we've spent over $100,000 on this water crisis, my 500-man local, and thankfully my international reimbursed us because they took charitable contributions. But like I said, the plumbing manufacturers, they had to donate at least $300,000 or $400,000 worth of stuff. So I had no idea that I could turn to them, but my international knew that.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
And just a word on that, Tom Bigley and I met through an organization that I helped to co-found called the Plumbing Industry Leadership Coalition. And the notion is that we've brought together 14 industry associations, and it's amazing how segmented even our singular plumbing industry is. There are different associations for people that make the pipes and make the valves, et cetera, et cetera. And I included Tom Bigley in this organization called, the Plumbing Industry Leadership Coalition, and he and I have since become great friends. And that really is the power, I think, of getting anything done. It's this notion of collaboration. And I'm a big believer in that in my personal life and certainly in my professional life. And much of PMI's success has been to, again, come with a collaborative, not a competitive sort of attitude to problem solving. And I couldn't agree with the earlier comment more about getting involved in your community and working together to look for solutions. It's not a matter of right, wrong, black, white, good guys, bad guys. By putting our collective strengths together, we can work together on solutions. And I think Flint is really a story symbolic of that joint effort where tragedy turned into something else, and in addition, we made some good friends along the way.
And on another note, I just want to say the Plumbing Contractors Association, the ones that have the vans and the tools, they donated the vans for the weekends, and they spend a lot of money also. We have a great relationship with our contractors that we work for, and I want to thank them for what they did also.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. The coordinated effort, it really is a massive undertaking. Just the coordinating even just the volunteer dollars and the donations and getting those donations to the right place to buy the right materials and supplies and water and then getting those into the hands of the people that need them the most, and the research and studies of the water samples, all of this. It really is a massive story. And to be able to talk with two of you at the heart of that, I think is really it was a great opportunity for us, and I appreciate you sharing your perspectives on this undertaking. Can I just switch the subject for just a real quick minute? Because both of you sit at the intersection of probably one of the biggest untold stories that needs more attention, and something that we focus on a lot here on the Blue Collar Proud Show, which is leadership of the next generation of workforce that's coming into the trades. And from just talking about plumbing specifically, being a part of the plumbing, the PILC, Barbara, that you mentioned, and forming that organization of leadership and leaders who are looking to bring in that next generation. What are the challenges there? And we need to keep it short, unfortunately, but I'm just curious, and I don't want to let you go until I know, but from both of your perspectives, what are the challenges in working with this new millennial workforce coming online right now?
Well, on the skilled trades end, it's been a struggle for us because for the last 20 years, all the schools are teaching is college. They're getting them ready to go to college. They've kind of forgot about the skilled trades. They've quit doing the metal shops and wood shops and that kind of training in schools, and we need to change that. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities out there for people that don't want to go to college. They want to work with their hands. They don't want $50,000 in student loans when they graduate. And the opportunity is there in the skilled trades right now because, we are aging. I'll be 56 in May. Okay, there's a lot of guys my age, and then there's a lot of guys in their 20s. There's a big gap between there because they weren't really promoting the trades and the skilled trades. And I think with the infrastructure needs this country has, people are going to see that there's an opportunity there to make a good career out of it.
I agree.
From our end of it, I think it's back to this notion of Flint being an opportunity to show the importance of the industry and the skill that Harold and his folks have. Water is our most precious resource, and much has been written that it's the next oil. It's the substance about which wars will be fought as sources deplete. And I think to position what we do as the stewards of and deliverers of water starts to change the perception of young people about what the industry is all about. The members that I mentioned earlier that made the donations are outstanding companies to work for, and they're doing great things on the social level as well as on a business and economical level. And I think it's a matter of kids today setting aside perhaps old notions about what it means to work in this industry and really look at it as the good work that we're doing as stewards of water, as I mentioned, our most precious commodity. So we've got a big job ahead of us, but I think with a little tweak in the perception, I think we'll be in good shape for the next generation.
I agree. It is a big job ahead of us, and it's nice to know that in the effort to make that, to bring attention to that we've got partners like you, Barbara, and like you, Harold, out there. Thank you guys for being on the show. Barbara Higgens and Harold Harrington, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, what's going on in Flint is still very ongoing. I mean, it's not a finished story at all. I'm glad to hear that they've made as much progress as they have in getting faucets and filters installed, but the shakeout from this is going to be decades long.
Well, not only that, if anybody, there's so many times we think that this is happening somewhere else. It's always somewhere else.
Sure.
There's a scientific thing about it that I've seen before, but I can't ever remember what it's called. But it really is when it's happening to other people, it's easy for us to distance ourselves and go, oh, gosh, I really feel for them. Here's $10 to help you. And you go on about your way. But that doesn't make it go away, and it doesn't make the problem go away in our communities all across the country. I mean, we're in Nashville, Tennessee. We're an old town. We've been established a long time ago. All up the East Coast. I mean, these are systemic problems that we as a nation have got to come together and figure out what we're going to do about it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's going to cost money.
Yep.
It's going to cost money.
Actually, I'm reading this is one of the maybe perhaps the few issues where there is a good deal of bipartisan support in both houses of in both the House and the Senate to do something about this, to appropriate the needed resources in our country to start dealing with failing infrastructure.
But I don't think we can just leave it up to Washington.
No.
Either. I mean,
that's what I loved about this story.
And that's my takeaway. You know, when you see something happening, get in there and do something about it. But even more than that, you know, after listening to our mayor, I know other mayors have got to be struggling across the country, needing people who are skilled people that can help them with these problems that they're happening everywhere, you know? So, you know, if you're retired or if you've got some time or something, I mean, get involved in your community.
Yeah. And that was my takeaway, was when your business is healthy and you're running things operationally at a level of excellence and financial health that it's a rock solid business, you now have those opportunities. You can see clearly where you can contribute at a much higher level, you know, at the municipal level, at the state level, at even the federal level, of giving your expertise and your knowledge back to, you know, the community that you serve. When you're just struggling, when you're barely surviving, when you don't know how you're going to meet payroll on Friday and you're struggling even just to figure out where all the money you made this year went, you don't have time for this. This is nothing but a problem that's got to be somebody else's because you're in survival mode. Guys, listening to this show, Blue Collar Proud Nation, the world needs you to be strong. It's your responsibility as a business owner to figure out how to grow the kind of blue collar proud business that gives you the capacity to step up and be a leader, to attract the new workforce that's coming online and be the kind of company that can lead them so that we have strong blue collar businesses in our country and in our world who can turn it around and serve.
Yeah. I mean, it's the paradigm that just says, I'm going to just do it for me. I've said this before. If your why is all about you, then, you know, you're going to make you happy. And when something happens, you're going to blame everybody else because you weren't the one that helped. And the reality is, if not you, who? If not you, who's going to do it?
Yeah. Yep, that's it. That was a sobering conversation, but also one filled with hope because there are people from the manufacturers level and large corporations, and these are large corporations,
big,
all the way down to local plumbers, 500 of them in Flint, Michigan, that said, guys, we got to do what's right here. We got to help. And they stepped up and did it. It really is a great story.
Yeah, and to think, you know, they've really opened our eyes, and now we have the opportunity to start getting involved before the problem gets that bad.
Yeah.
Let's solve it before we you know.
Oh, I guarantee. Yeah. I mean, you know, there are criminal prosecutions and investigations going on in Flint right now.
Yeah.
There are people who have had criminal charges filed against them, people in leadership in government there in the Flint area and even at the state level. People who probably are in that position for one reason, and that's because they didn't have the knowledge they needed to make a better decision than the one they made. Yeah. Had other people been involved in the process, had they reached out, had those resources volunteered, stepped up and said, whoa, wait a minute. You can't do that, and here's why. Some of those people may not be facing criminal prosecution. I'm just guessing. But
well, it does sound like, from what Harold said, though, that they tried. They tried to say, no, that's not going to work.
Right.
And somebody didn't listen.
No, and I agree.
But this is when, but I agree with you, you cannot deal with alternative facts and alternative whatever you're in, lives that you're in, when it matters. Yeah. People's lives matter. You know, what you do, what you say matters. And we got to understand that. It matters. And when our lives are depending on something, you can't go down an alternative fact. You have to deal with what the best that we can in front of us. And we have to start doing that. If we don't, man, what I'm hopeful with is that they're saying this is what happened, this is how it happened, and it's going to happen everywhere if we don't address it.
Mm-hmm. All over the country,
but
though,
engineers are saying
does it
our
have
infrastructure
to
is
get
failing. This bad for us to say, oh,
yeah.
Well, that's what it was.
Well, that is a conversation for another podcast for sure.
Maybe not ours, but I could have that one.
Yeah. All right, Proud Nation, we want to hear what your takeaway was from this show. There's important things to think about here, things that transcend just your business, things that impact the world around you, and your role in that is important, and we want to know what your takeaway is. When you share your takeaway, when you share information with other people, things that you're learning about you and your business and about leadership, when you share it with others, you get it. It firms it up in your own mind. It makes it more actionable for you. So go to our Facebook group, Blue Collar Proud Nation. Simply search for it on Facebook, Blue Collar Proud Nation. Find the group, ask to join if you're not already a member. Once you're in there, look for the post. It'll be at the top if you're listening to this when the episode was released originally, then you'll find that episode takeaway right there, that post. It's simply going to be called Barbara Higgens and Harold Harrington episode takeaways. And list right there in the comments of that post, list what you got from this particular episode. I think it's important to weigh in there. And of course, you can always find out about all the other places that you can connect with us by simply going to bcpshow.com/connect. That is it for this episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show. As always, Taylor and I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank the people that make this show happen every single week. Aaron Blaze, our technical director, Jessica Wynn, our show coordinator, and Jonathan Sanders and Karen Hatcher, our social media managers. Until next time, remember, it takes the same amount of blood, sweat, and tears to build a business you hate as it does to build one you're proud of. So why not build it the Blue Collar Proud way?
The Blue Collar Proud Show is a production of the Blue Collar Proud Network.